Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristen West, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Women Want Talk Radio. Thank you for joining us for our show tonight, An Unusual Leader, featuring media entrepreneur Lesley Jane Seymour. We've successfully reached over 1 million downloads since we first hit the airwaves, with me broadcasting from New York, and my co-host Kristen West is in our studio in LA.
Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? Such a great night, isn't it, Judy?
Oh, my gosh, it is so great. And I'm actually usually in New York, but I'm on the West Coast tonight, and it's from Seattle. I'm shooting a commercial out here, so very exciting. I'm a little closer to you, Kristen.
I know, but I don't think if I walked to you, I don't think I would get there before the end of the show. So, unfortunately, not close enough.
I don't think so. Well, between LATalkRadio.com's archives, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and all over social media, you can find us everywhere. So listen to those replays and subscribe to us on YouTube, and sponsor us if you want to get you or your company out there. Email us for a complete deck through our website, whatwomenwantradio.com. Kristen, the theme of our show tonight is leadership, and that really weaves through every part of our lives, doesn't it? I feel like sometimes when people hear leader, or in the past, maybe I have thought of this too, I think of business or perhaps my boss, but everyone has the potential to lead, whether you're the CEO of a company, a mom, a student, or an actor.
No, everybody leads at different times, even if it's not readily apparent to you. And sometimes the best leaders are also great followers. So even if you think of yourself as more of a follower instead of a leader, I think you do have tremendous leadership potential. I think everybody has some leadership gifts.
That's right. And we're all weaving this path in life, right, in our own way. And at some point, we are leaders, and we are, needing those tools to know how to strengthen it and how to act and build our companies, our reputations, and it just kind of comes into every area of our life. So I'm excited to talk to Lesley Jane tonight about, the way she's built her leadership and what she's done to really rise to the top of the publishing world. And I'd like to thank our sponsor in the meantime, Design and Print Resource. And thank you, Gloria Strayer. Everyone buys printing in some form at some point. So the company you can trust for great service is Design and Print Resource. Gloria Strayer is the founder and the owner, and they're based in Anaheim, California, and she's been in the print industry for 40 years. Her services include warehousing and distribution, so give them a call at 714-687-9200 or go to dnpresource.com. My background originally comes from high fashion modeling with Ford, New York, and after that I was a magazine editor and then an author with St. Martin's Press, which eventually led me to hosting and reporting regularly for Better TV, City Buzz, and all the TV networks across the country, both regional and national. I'm currently a regular contributor on NBC and Fox, and I'm also hosting the show currently Behind the Gates. It's a luxury real estate show airing on AWE, which I've been shooting all summer. And between that and raising twin teenage girls, I'm also an entrepreneur. I founded the company What Women Want Networking 7 years ago. We're hosting our second National Women's Conference, October 19th through the 21st at the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta, Georgia. And the theme is Go Big. So if you want to meet me or Kristen, or maybe our guest tonight, she's one of our keynotes at the conference, Lesley Jane Seymour, join us in October. The website is whatwomenwantconf.com. That's CONF.com. And last year was our first conference, and women from 13 states and Canada attended. So far this year, we've tripled our attendance, Kristen. I'm so excited. So grab your ticket quick because we have a special going on until August 1st. And use the code GOBIGDiscount and get to whatwomenwantconf.com because that room is filling up. I am so excited to say. And we have the CEO of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Amy Newmark, as our opening keynote. David Baer is back again this year, who's the newest motivational mindset sensation. Cecilia Lenk, who's the CEO of Value Setters, which has 200,000 angel investors in her network. She's our closing keynote. So from inspiration to business development to mindset this conference has it all. Women for One's Kelly McNellis is hosting a stop on her Truth Teller Tour. Catherine Marshall from Simple Fat Burn and Deborah Daniel from Charter Accounting. This is just incredible. I'm so excited. VIPs, surprise guests, and honestly, this kind of crowd is the kind of conference that you will want to be a part of. So go to whatwomenwantconf.com before it's too late, and we fill up for sure. Kristen, I'm talking on and on about myself. I know you have so many things going on in your world that are just soaring and exploding out of sight. Tell us about it.
Well, this weekend, starting on Friday, I'm going to be at Hollywood Horror Fest, and we're starting our second season of Horror Talk with Kristen West. So I have some big, yay! So I have some big guests lined up for season 2, and I can't tell you yet, which is, it's like, I want to explode. Our guests are so good this season. And so you want to definitely follow at HorrorTalk_KW on Twitter, because we're going to have some big announcements about Horror Talk, folks, and you're going to want to keep up with all of that. That's the big news.
Well, I hope
right
you're
now.
going to break some of those announcements on the show, girlfriend.
I will. I will next week. I will next week. I want to get the guests on camera first, but I will tell you all about Hollywood Horror Fest next week. That's the big thing going on, and we're also on Facebook at Horror Talk with Kristen West. So if you're a horror fan and a Kristen and Judy fan, that is the page for you. And I can't wait until we get you out to California again and we do a taping, because I want you to co-host some of these shows with me. They're so much fun.
I know. You look like you're having a little too much fun. And on top of that, you're in line for winning all of these awards for the show. I mean, it's just incredible the success you've created out of this show. How did you get the inspiration for this show? I want to know.
Well, the truthful story is that I really needed an interview reel for hosting, and Matt Chasen and I discussed how we could kind of get that accomplished, and then we taped some interviews of some horror stars at Baroni's, which is down the street here in the Valley, and they were good enough. He was like, you could really do something with this, and I was like, yeah. So we put it up on YouTube and we put it up on Facebook, and it got a following, and then now we have some special announcements, and we're going to even have an even bigger following. So I'm so excited. So I guess the moral of the story is just have fun and be excellent at whatever you're doing, and you might actually get something good happening, which is kind of what it was for me. And speaking of excellence in our own lives, Lesley Jane Seymour is just an example of excellence. Wouldn't you say, Judy?
I would, and I can't wait to hear the details. Of course, I know a lot about her background because, full disclosure, I used to work for her at More Magazine. She was my boss. She was the editor-in-chief when I was at More. So it's very exciting for me to find out, really how she came from the publishing world into now entrepreneurship, because I know she's got a lot of stories behind that.
Right. Lesley Jane Seymour is the founder of Covey Club, a new club for lifelong learners that launched in February of 2018. And Covey Club allows women who are over 40 to bond over issues of interest and concern through a virtual magazine, blog, salons, and podcasts. And before becoming a media entrepreneur, Lesley was the editor-in-chief of a number of magazines, including More, Marie Claire, Redbook, and YM. Welcome to the show, Lesley.
Hi, ladies. Happy to be here with you. I'm listening to you, and it's my whole history there you were talking about.
Well, it's so exciting to have you, and I know Judy was very enthusiastic to have you on. And I read about Covey Club, and I looked at the website, perused it, and learned about you and some of the things that brought you to Covey Club. And I have to say, I want the millennial version of Covey Club.
Well, I actually did Covey Club because everything out there is for millennials. And I love millennials. I have 2 of them. But there's so little for us ladies out there who are going to live another 30, 40 years, God bless us. And there's nothing for us. And there's nothing for us that really talks about the issues in our lives. I mean, from the silly stuff like which best mascaras we should wear, because, that's that first, you talk about horror stories. The first time a makeup artist takes your eyebrow and yanks it up so they can put the mascara on.
Oh, my.
And from that to the serious things about, when Kate Spade takes her life and you say, oh, my God, I had no idea this horrible thing is going on at midlife. And then you dig into the numbers and you find out that since 1999, the numbers on suicide and depression for women 40 plus has gone up by 69%. We have things to talk about, and so that's why I did Covey Club. So,
I'm glad you brought that up, because women have different issues at various stages of life, and I know that like I even feel that now, being a sort of an older millennial. I feel transitions happening in my own life, and I think sometimes as our self-perception also transitions as we make those transitions. So, I'd like to ask you, how would you describe your leadership style now versus maybe when you first started out in your career?
Well, I've always been an untraditional leader because I was never given any leadership training. I came up as a writer. That's all I wanted to be. This is so horrible to say as a feminist. All I wanted to be was a writer. I wanted to be Peggy Olson. I just wanted, that was my sole ambition. No, I guess I just wanted to be a career girl. And I got hired at Women's Wear Daily right out of college. I went to Duke in North Carolina actually to be a marine biologist, and I was not a great scientist. I was actually a much better writer. And in those days, to be a writer, you could actually be like a copywriter or something, and you could have a career. And I met the Washington Post fashion director was doing a fellowship at Duke, and we hit it off, and she lined me up with Women's Wear Daily. And I started stringing for Women's Wear Daily from the campus as a freelancer and started the day after. And I was never taught any kind of leadership. I had all micromanaging bosses. The kind of people who ran magazines in those days, they were command down kind of people. And when I worked at Harper's Bazaar, I worked at Vogue for 9 years. I worked at Glamour as a beauty editor. And when I finally landed a job as an editor-in-chief at YM, I remember going to my publisher, a woman named Mary Berner, who I totally adored and ran teams. And I said, oh, my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to be a leader for the first time, and I have no instruction. All I have are these people who wanted to tell me everything to do and wanted to do my work for me, and I hated it. I could never grow. I was being strangled to death, and it was awful. And she looked at me and she said, do the opposite. And I was like, really? And that's what I did. And I became the opposite kind of manager. I call myself a Ronald Reagan manager. And it worked for me. I am a hands-off manager, which means that everybody who comes to work for me, I assume that you're going to do your job and 10 other jobs around you. You're going to grow. I became the bench team for everybody in my corporation. They stole everybody from me. I would grow them, and then they would go off, which was really irritating in many cases, but it was wonderful because I grew all these people who then would come back later on, and they were grateful to me because that's who I wanted. I didn't like being in these companies that held me back and squashed me and kept me because I was good at something and didn't let me grow and become anything. And I had people who came back and worked for me many times. Judy, you'll laugh. I had somebody who came back and worked for me at 4 different magazines.
Wow.
And I think that in itself is a recommendation of, in my opinion, how to do it right. Now, on the other hand, I got to the point where when I was running more, I would say to people, potential hires, look, this is how I run it. I am hands-off. If you want to be micromanaged, I'm not the boss for you. And I'm the kind of boss that you come in, you do your thing. I don't need to see your face all the time. I assume you're going to do your job. I don't, if you're getting the work done, I don't care if you're, at your kids' swim meet. If you're not getting the work done, we're going to have trouble. So
what happened when someone didn't do their job? Because I can't imagine that everyone did.
Not everybody did, and there were problems, especially when you were working in public companies. Well, in not public companies, you could be a little bit more open with the staff, because the problem is the staff could see these people were not pulling their weight. And public companies, you're not allowed to let on that you realize these people are not pulling their weight. And because there's so much legal stuff that you have to do, you can't come in and quickly move them out. It's months of notices and alerting and documenting and, pushing. And I mean, sometimes you have to actually job eliminate them because they play around with things like FIMLA. They're very good at getting around all the things. There are people who take advantage.
And I'm sure there's politics too, right?
Oh, it's all politics, sure, absolutely. You can get in trouble by being a hands-off manager. So you have to be aware of what your issues are. Definitely are problems with that. You have to have good managers under you who will watch the little threads and who will watch for the people who are trying to get a free ride. So as long as you know that, and they know that, and they're cool with that, it works out really well. But in general, what you don't get is you don't get the angry people, you don't get the frustrated people, you get the people who know that when a promotion comes up, you're the one in it with your boss saying, you know what, take Jane. She's great. She needs a promotion. It's time for her. And they respect you, and they'll hang on there for another year with you, even though they're bored with their job. They know you can say to them, "Look, I'm fighting for you. I know when the next editor-in-chief job's coming up, and I'm going to give it to you. If I'm in the room, I'll be your sponsor." Rather than being the kind of micromanaging person who doesn't do that for you.
Now, I know very well that the difference between being a writer and an editor-in-chief is like you're talking about the North and the South Pole, and you didn't just float into this position, which you are talking very humbly about. But I was in the publishing industry. It's a dog-eat-dog world if you want to move up.
It's dog.
So
it's dog meat all the way.
Exactly. So my question to you is, when you had this dream of being a writer, and you said really that's all you wanted to do, and that's still a noble job. When was the transition that you felt when you were inspired to start moving up in the publishing world? I'm sure at one point you must have had that editor-in-chief position in your eye, and you did not stop until you got it, because that's how it is. When was that?
Right. I had been working at Vogue for 9 years, and I started watching the people around me start to move into higher positions as editors, and seeing people at my level go to be editors at other things who had been writers. They were being taken out of being writers. They had been writers at Vogue, and they would go over to the New York Times and become an editor of the New York Times magazine. Or they would go over from Women's Wear Daily, and they would get a magazine. They would get Mary Claire magazine. And I was like, what is that about? They were writers like me. Like, why are they doing that? Like, I didn't quite understand. And then I had the same woman who told me to do the opposite, said to me, I very, very specifically remember this. Did you know Mary Berner? Do you remember her? She was the publisher of Glamour. We were down on a trip it was a beauty trip down in Florida, and we're on a bus going somewhere. And she was just a very outspoken person, and she turned to me, and I was the beauty editor at Glamour, and she turns to me, and she was one of those people, very few people, Judy, how they inspire you. And she just turns to me flat out, and she goes, So why didn't you ever think of running a magazine? And I was like, what? I'm like, I don't know. Why? She goes, you could do it. You could do it. I'm like, what? Me? Why? She goes, you could do it. Come on. I know you could do it. You'd be great. I'm like, really? Me? Why do you think I just never, it never even occurred to me. She was the one who made me think. She was the publisher of Glamour. And she said, look, there are plenty of people out there. You're just as good as they are. And I was like, I am? I just had never, I honestly she was the one who made me think I could do it. And I was always grateful to her. And then literally after her, she hammered at me for a long time after that. And I always admired her because she was like a real, get out there and do it. She was full of fire. She was amazing, amazing, inspirational person. And I literally 6 months after that, I just thought, well, because I was always so inspired by her, I thought if she thinks I can do this and all these other people who were doing it had my same background, maybe I should stick my foot in the water and maybe somebody will be stupid enough to hire me. And so I did. And then what was really weird is when I landed YM, it took 7 interviews. I remember thinking, this is ridiculous. What more can they ask me? And when I did it, after I did it, then I fell in love. I mean, I just totally, absolutely fell in love. What I realized is that you can always write. I mean, as an editor-in-chief, you can still write, but then you get to do all this other fun stuff. And then the stuff that you don't want to write anymore, somebody else can write, or you've already written, somebody else can write. But it really was one person. And she was a real leadership sort of example for me. And she was an inspirational person who made me think beyond what I ever thought I could do myself. And I think we all need to find those people. And if you're lucky enough to stumble, I mean, she literally just fell into my life. And to this day is a very inspirational person for me.
I want to ask you, Lesley, what's the least glamorous thing about being in a leadership position? Because you've worked in very glamorous circles, and people aspire to the career that you've had. So what's the least glamorous thing about it?
Oh, the least glamorous part about all these jobs is that, you're sitting there in the front row. It sounds so glamorous. You're going, front row of the Givenchy show and the front row of this and that and all this stuff. And you're being whipped around in fancy cars and you're opening the door of your Milan,
oh my God, that sounds terrible.
Hotel room, and you can't even open the door because the bags of gifts are keeping the door from opening. It's a really tough life. It's awful. And the truth is, it's like you're getting all kinds of rashes on your legs from all kinds of weird products you're putting on it. You're getting, you're sweating to death because you've been up all night and you're like having 3 hours of sleep. You're getting, all kinds of weird health issues are happening behind the scenes, and you're putting makeup on top of other makeup and you're running back and forth, exchanging your clothes in half an hour so you can get from one show to the other because you can't be at the Givenchy show carrying a YSL bag. It's all what? Super elegant first world issues. It's like Hollywood. I always said that being an editor is Hollywood for non-actors. It's exactly the same thing. You just don't have to memorize lines. There's a lot of icky, and then there's a lot of icky, gooey, yucky sexism stuff that's in there too. It's not as gross as what the Hollywood actors have to live with, but it's a lot of yicky, yucky, grossy stuff too. But
because
it's a lot
mostly
of glam.
men
It's
running
a lot of fun.
The companies,
It's
right?
all men at the top, 99% men at the top. And what's really gross is you have a lot of men who are so comfortable that they can run the women's division of a company that puts out 99% women's products, that when you go to them as an editor-in-chief of a women's magazine and you say, we're putting Lena Dunham on the cover, they can look you straight in the eye without a blink and say, who's Lena Dunham?
Jeez.
And not worry about losing their job.
And
they can just look you in the eye because they're the friend of the president of the company and he doesn't care. And I had that happen. And they don't even need to Google. They don't even have to look down on their phone and Google who Lena Dunham is. They can just look at you and say, who's that? And they're the head of the women's division.
And they completely don't know.
That's what goes on. They don't care to know. It doesn't matter. Or they can say to you, let me ask my wife. That's the other answer.
Oh, geez.
It happens. Yeah. 2 years ago.
Wow.
So things like that go on, and that's the debilitating and depressing part of where we are. And it still goes on. And that's not everybody. I'm just saying, look, there's a lot of great women making headway. There's a lot of, fabulous women changing things. But it's still there. The legacy is still there. It's really unfortunate. Some companies are worse than others. And it's sad that it still goes on. And women put up with it because they need the paycheck and because what are they going to do? They speak out, they get thrown out. So until we start running our own companies, which is one of the reasons why I created Covey, and Covey means a small group of birds because everybody says, what the heck does Covey mean? It's a small group of birds. I wanted to talk about, birds of a feather flock together. I wanted to give women a place to come together that was new and interesting, that is virtual and in real life. We get together virtually over podcasts, over blogs, over digital magazines, and then in real life, in people's homes, at events. And I'm trying to take them around the country. I've done things in LA already. I've done things in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, a lot in New York.
And what do you do at these events? Tell me what one's like.
DC. So the in real life can be anything from when the Obama portraits were released. I had what's called a visual scholar who wrote a wonderful piece for us, give us a tour of the Obama Portrait Gallery. And she gave us this fantastic tour that was absolutely amazing of the National Gallery in D.C. Or it could be an event with a group called Reboot XL in Silicon Valley, which brings women back to work after being out of work from anywhere from a year to 25 years. They got together and we talked about reinventing your life for your second half. Or it could be a Covey sort of opening party that we did with the Female Quotient and one of the other groups from D.C. That was just sort of a launch party for Covey in L.A. And then we'll do Lesley's List group events. The top part of Covey Club, I have 3 different subscription areas. The tippy top is called Lesley's List, which is a private networking group where you come with a give and a get. And these women, it's all off the record networking, and you come and we all talk about what your needs are. You could be a manager, you could be a C-suite person. You may need, I don't know, it could be maybe you're being sexually harassed in your job and you need a lawyer and there's nobody else you can talk to. Maybe you need, ADHD testing for your kid and you don't want to talk about it in your community. Maybe you need friends or a partner for you want to launch an entrepreneurial business and you can't talk to anybody yet about wanting to launch an entrepreneurial thing. You can do these all things privately. It's national. I have people from all around the country. It's private. We get together both virtually and in real life, and we have people from all across the country on that list. You get access to everybody, and there are people there. I have people who are CMOs from banks, people who are executive speech people, and then people who are branding people in there. They're like from all kinds of stuff, and they're all experts. That's what's amazing. So we'll do an event like where we just all get together in someone's home, and it could be in D.C., it could be in Seattle, it could be, we're going to do something in Minneapolis this fall. And what some women said when we went around the room, we had 60 women there, and we talked about what we all did. One woman stood up, she said, we could start a Fortune 500 company with this group. I said, yes, and the question is, which one? So it can be all this kind of stuff. I want to connect women across the country, guys, because I feel we are so disconnected right now, and we are so needing that personal connection, kind of like what you guys are doing here tonight. We need to talk to each other. We need to hear each other's voices, both virtually and in real life. We need to do both. We need to do more than read. The content on the site, which is digital, So there's digital there's reading, there's listening. I have a podcast which is called Reinvent Yourself with Lesley Jane Seymour. And that's all reinvention stories with women 40 plus, all different angles. But we need to do more than that. We need to take it into real life, and we also need to be discussing things intellectually and also virtually. And then the really interesting thing I do, which is really fun, on Wednesday nights from 8 to 9, most Wednesday nights, starting up again in the fall, we do what are called coffee and conversations. They're done over the Zoom network, and about 30 people usually attend. It can go all the way up to 100. I bring 2 experts, and we do virtual panels, but they're live for an hour, Eastern Standard Time, 8 to 9. And we'll do things like how to dress age appropriate. And I'll bring a stylist and a designer, and we do show and tell. We talk about how do you find a good look after 40? Where do you find a great T-shirt? How do you know what's appropriate? How do you know what's not? It's really hard these days. I mean, and we'll write down all the resources and send them to you. It is hard to find a great white T-shirt. LA is a good place to find a white T-shirt. The rest of the country, to find something that's not dull and boring is really hard. We'll do that, and then we'll do, everything from women in power. How do you, I'll bring an executive psychologist and then a woman who teaches power and training at West Point. And what's interesting is to find out one of the biggest issues they teach at West Point is that women give power away, and you don't realize that.
Mm. Well, for someone who's never been taught leadership, you've become a leader of many, many people, even just by stepping out into becoming an entrepreneur.
I love the entrepreneurial world, guys. You know what I love? I am so happy that all I can say to all of your listeners there, if you are worried about or thinking about or saying, gee, I'm not so happy with what's going on in my personal business life, and I'm thinking that corporate's not for me anymore, and I'm, maybe I'm aging out, or I'm thinking there's something better for me somewhere, I'm feeling bored, or this feels stilted, or whatever. Try the entrepreneurial world. If you have the opportunity, it is like a second life for me. I've been corporate my whole life, Judy, you know that. I am like a kid back being 20 years old again. I wake up every day. You've been an entrepreneur way longer than me. You know this. I did not know. I meet the most interesting, fascinating people every day doing amazing things. And even more interesting than that is every woman says to me, how can I help you? And they do, just like you. You and I knew each other, but we haven't seen each other in a long time. And the first thing you said to me is, how can I help you? And you did. No one says that to you in corporate. In corporate, everybody says, what can you do for me?
Lesley, I love what...
Right?
Right. And I love that you brought that up. And women do need to help other women succeed. And you've also advised others to have a reinvention plan in their back pocket. Why is that important for women, especially women with leadership skills like you and Judy?
Well, I go around the country talking about why you need to have a reinvention plan in your back pocket. It is my mantra, and the reason is I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 25 years old. You must have plan B. And the reason is the world we live in today has speeded up so fast. And I actually did a study of this when I was putting together my very first talk. And I used my husband's family as an example. His dad worked for 45 years at one place, and he retired, and he got the proverbial watch, and he got the RV, right? And he went from one place. That was it. My husband worked at 3 places. My son is expected to work at 7 places before he's 30.
Wow.
That's how it works for millennials.
Yeah, that's true.
7. That's the expectation. You cannot any longer, yes, you cannot any longer expect that you control your future. Not only are we living longer, and women especially, what you have to realize, women are expected to outlive their husbands by 8 to 12 years. We are expected to take care of our older, these are the numbers. We are going to take care of our elderly parents more likely than our husbands will. We are going to take care of our older children as well. These are just the numbers. How are we going to do that? We need to have money, plus the fact we are still being paid 20 cents to the dollar less than men. We must have Plan B, which means that you cannot stick your head in the ground, and I hear these women say this all the time, and it's very female, and I did this myself, but they love me. I've been here 22 years. Nothing's going to happen. They love me. My bosses love me. They love you until tomorrow when they've been bought out by a bigger bank. They love you till tomorrow when the owner dies and it gets sold to the son who sells it to somebody in Dakar. They love you until there's no love in business. And it's not about you. It's about what's going on in the world, and you have no control. And it may not ever be about you. You have to have a reinvention plan in your pocket. And what I say, you also have to have from the day, really, probably in your 20s, you can, if you don't have a family and everything, you can probably survive without this. But really around 30, you should have a year's worth of your salary in your back pocket somewhere just in case something goes wrong. And a secondary idea, because you don't know what's going to happen. And as we've seen, many, many, many businesses and many, many sectors are getting disrupted. I mean, who could have told me that the magazine business would go out of business?
Right.
Who would have known? Look at the travel industry. Who would have known that we'd be booking our own flights and there would be no travel agents anymore? Look at being a bank teller. Who would have said there's no more bank tellers? I mean, we don't know where things are headed. You need to have a plan B, and that means having a secondary idea, which is also good for you intellectually and it's good for you as a person and good for you as to be a more interesting person as well in your back pocket. And you should have a year of a salary to get you by. And that's just a really important thing. And as you get older, if you're over 40, you must have that secondary idea. And it takes a while to cultivate a secondary idea. And I started when I got to Moore. I had 8 bosses, and I had 5 bosses and 4 publishers in 8 years. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to know this is not a good sign for business, right?
Right.
If you're constantly changing management, you're constantly changing partners, you have to say to yourself, this is not a good sign for the business. And then across town, on a yearly basis, the company across town is firing 400 editors at a time, right? So I had to say to myself, I probably am not going to run another magazine. I've run 4. I love it. I love this business. I want to run another one, but it doesn't look good. What am I going to do? So I actually decided to go back to something that I originally loved, which was science. And I actually applied to sustainability management to get my master's up at Columbia University, which I'm in the process of finishing up. I have 2 more courses, believe it or not.
Congratulations.
That was my backup plan. My backup plan was sustainability management. And I'm trying to finish my master's while I am launching a business, if you can believe this, which is hysterically crazy insanity. But I'm doing it because that was my backup plan. Covey was not my backup plan. I did not know that my readers were going to come to me and say, Lesley, please do this. Covey came because when they pulled the plug for Moore, my readers came to my personal social media and said they were so upset. Moore never had a readership problem. It was just an advertising problem. And they came to me and said, do something else for us. And they gave me literally a roadmap of what they wanted, and it was half events and half content. So I'm following their map that they asked me to do. And so this is an intervention. I'm on my second plan, but they came and interrupted my second plan. So
So the master's is your third?
Yes, it's like my third. It's like my third backup plan. Yes, exactly. And now that I'm doing this, I'm so much happier. I originally thought I would go into the beauty business and sustainability. I thought I'll go corporate with sustainability because sustainability is such a growing issue. But I have to tell you, I love sustainability. I love Columbia. I love everything I've learned there, and I'm so close to finishing the degree that I'm going to finish it. I'm going to kill myself finishing it. But I love being an entrepreneur so much. I just don't think I want to ever go back to corporate. But you can take this degree and do government stuff later on. You can help small businesses. There's all kinds of things you can do. But I think I'm going to do the Covey thing and see where it takes me instead.
Well, I think that's important because you had the courage to listen to the people that were giving you feedback and you didn't get stuck. I think some people, when they're faced with a situation where they're being let go from a job that they have had for several years, they don't have that reinvention plan like you talked about, it can really, really keep them down, and they can sink into really bad states of mind about how to reinvent themselves. And you talked about people reaching out to you on social media. How should women leaders be using social media?
Well, on coveyclub.com, you can go into our blog area, which is free. If you join Covey, you can join at the free area, which is called Wing It. You can read the blog part, which will give you some idea of the content we provide. And then you can step up to the Nest area, which will give you access to all the reading, but you'll get an idea of what it is. We discuss an awful lot about building personal brand. Personal brand is the key to your reinvention. And there are several steps that you have to take. You have to learn about it. You have to dig in there. Today, the problem is that there are no more HR departments. Remember the old days when you may not know this because you sound like you're too young, but in the old days when I started out in the 70s, you had companies and you would call the HR department, and there were people that would pick up a phone and they would take a message, and you would go in and have an interview. Now you send resumes in that computers read, and if you don't write the right words, nobody ever calls you back. I mean, I hear these horrific stories from these young women that I coach who just can't even, I send my resume to LinkedIn and nobody even knows I exist. I mean, it's horrible, horrible, horrible. So the whole thing is about personal brand, making yourself stand out. Who are you? And this is also a big learning curve for women who are in their 40s and 50s, especially if they've already been corporate. How do they make themselves stand out? So we do an awful lot of that discussion, and it's vital to figuring out what your next step is. How do you make yourself not be, Jane number 50144229996? That's key.
Well, yeah, your personal brand, is so important. And you teaching people how to identify that is paramount in their life, especially, I think, and Kristen brought up with the social media. You can get so lost, just even sitting on social media and trying to reply to people, right? And I don't realize that everything you post, it just has an impact on who you are at the core.
It's so hard. We did a fabulous coffee and conversation with a wonderful professor at NYU who does personal branding. And she teaches a course in it, and she's fantastic, and she teaches you how to go back and do an audit of what do other people see you as, and you first have to go back and audit the people who know you and say, like, what do you think I am? And give me names for, how you see me. Am I a wallflower? What are the words you'd use for me? And she gave us some exercises to do. It was really excellent. And that's kind of what we do in these coffee and conversations. They're kind of like a little course. And I that was really, really very enlightening for people to see how personal branding works and how you do, how you use it. And then the whole social media, I mean, from there, that you sort of pick up your matrix from there and then you work it forward. And every single one of those things, you know, Judy, it's like building a brand. I mean, you have to have a color, a logo, and you have to beat it to death, and you can't move off that. If green's your color, you can't use yellow, And if you use the word happy,
Right,
you
it
may
gets so
not use
tedious.
the word smile. It's tedious to us, but what's so interesting is you don't realize, because the world is so vast, you feel like you're screaming all day long, and they hear a little mouse scratching in the corner.
Right.
And it's so interesting how hard it is to establish yourself out there. It's really interesting. And especially having been a media person in such a giant spotlight for so long, I find I'm so lucky because I have the advantage that people already know me. I have such a big footprint already that I have such an advantage over somebody who's starting from zero. And
well, Kristen, I am so thrilled to
scream.
I'm so thrilled to carry on this conversation to the conference.
Yes.
Because you are a captivating speaker and you have so much to teach us, right, Kristen?
Oh, totally. And I wanted to ask you, Lesley, what advice would you give a woman who needs to make a reinvention but doesn't know where to start? What's that crucial first step?
Crucial step is what I call kitchen cabinet. And that is, you make a list of your friends you need to haul in, one from grade school, one from high school, one from college, one from your 20s, 30s, 40s, boxes of pizza, rosé, and get one of those white flip charts and a bunch of markers. Get them really drunk, and you're going to ask them to do the audit with you. And the first thing you're going to say is, the first thing you want to know is, when you think of me and all my talents that I had as a kid, and you're literally just going to maybe get one of them to write it down with you, because you just want to write it all down. Memories of me. What did I like? Because you're searching for threads.
Right.
And this is all, you're looking for all the lost things, the lost toys, not the lost boys, the lost toys. What was it? Because you're going to forget. You forgot. You loved tap. You loved sun in your hair. You loved just all the stuff you forgot. You loved painting sparkles on your nails. You loved, you loved guinea pigs. Write it all down, all the crap that you forgot as you got older and you got rid of, that brought you joy as a kid. You loved scratch-on tattoos.
Right.
You loved whatever, the Beastie Boys, whatever it was.
And start from there.
That's one list.
Okay.
You start from there. That's the threads of stuff that you might go back to as an adult that maybe would bring you joy again as a second act somehow, right? Maybe you ate cheese a lot and you gave it up and you might want to be a cheesemaker. I don't know what it is. We'll find something in there. That's the starting point. Just rip those off. That's one pile. Second pile is words that describe me in your opinion, and you cannot hold back, even if it's bad words, even if it's mean words.
Right.
Maybe it's, embarrassing words. I don't know, wallflower, doesn't speak up, too intimidating, or ballsy, doesn't shut up. Well, I need to know, what do you see me as? What is my personal brand to you? Honestly, tell me what the truth is. What's the audit?
And what's the
that's
third
the second
list?
pile.
Is there a third pile?
Well, not yet. That's enough for one big drunken pizza party.
Cool.
That's where you start.
Well, you know what? Judy and I are going to have to do
we'll
this
pick it up
with
at
you.
the conference.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring those to the conference. Everybody bring those to the conference, and we'll tell you what to do with them.
Awesome. Well, Lesley.
And a bottle of rosé.
Lesley, thank you so much.
And a bottle of rosé.
And a bottle of rosé. There we go. Well, we know what's going on at the conference this year. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for joining us. I know that our listeners want to connect with you and connect with Covey Club after the show. How do they do that?
They go to coveyclub.com, COVEY club.com, and then they can always reach me at Lesley, LESLEY, at coveyclub.com.
Awesome.
And of course, we're always at our Facebook page, too, coveyclub.com Facebook page.
Wonderful. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for joining us. I think we all need a reinvention from time to time, and you've really given us the roadmap to do that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bring the rosé.
And yes, bring that rosé. And next week we are welcoming back Dr. Robbie Ludwig and a new guest, Michelle Jacobic. And remember, subscribe to us on YouTube. Don't miss one show. Go to whatwomenwantradio.com for more information and more great shows. And see you next week. Have a great night.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristen West, only on LA Talk Radio.